What's up, guys? Farooqi Bros here, back with another podcast. And today for you guys, we're going to be talking about Joker 2, some of the big updates at CinemaCon, and a couple of reviews that we didn't get a chance to cover while we were on kind of a one-month break during Ramadan. But let's just get right into it. I actually want to start with something cool that we didn't get a chance to discuss over the last month, and that's this new initiative by people in our industry called Cinema for Gaza. And basically, this is a celebrity auction where a bunch of people, including Joaquin Phoenix, who we're going to be discussing in a few minutes for Joker 2, basically donated personal items, mementos, things from the film sets, and they actually raised over $300,000 in relief efforts for the people over there. So definitely, anytime our industry, which is rare, honestly, that they come together for the Palestinian cause, we definitely want to put that out there. Though the auction is officially over, you can still donate on the link. So I'll keep the link in the description so you guys can take a look. But definitely a cool initiative from our industry, and we definitely are all with that as well. So let's get right into it. And we're going to be starting with Joaquin Phoenix's next big movie, and that's Joker 2, coming out of the latest CinemaCon 2024. And basically, Joker 2 is interesting because over the last year, I think, since they announced that film, I think from the four of us, there was a bit of skepticism. I think that's the main thing. We were like, why even make a sequel? Like, this is a movie that was one and done. It came out, you got an Oscar. Why kind of mess with it and go back in? And then you have obviously introducing a new Harley Quinn with Lady Gaga and kind of that new thing. And we were all kind of like half-half on it. But now that the trailer is out, I want to kind of go around the round table and see, has our opinions changed? Are we a little more excited, a little less excited? And I'm actually going to start with Zion on this one, since she's the resident Batman / So why don't you get into it? What did you think about Joker 2? The trailer.
Yeah, I agree that it was kind of like a point of contention for us. We had differing opinions because it's like, one, you capture lightning in a bottle with the first movie, and clearly they're going to a much more diverse or different direction with this one because you can't recreate that one. So you really have to take it a new place. So that was never a problem for us. So yeah, it was gonna be more musical and it was gonna lead to that. So I thought, okay, yeah, let it be a complete drastic direction. So then it's not stepping on the toes of the first movie. It's not trying to redo the first movie in any way. It's branching to do something new, but kind of still keeping the same vibe, the same look of that film. And when the news came out a few weeks ago that, it's going to feature lots of like contemporary songs, something like that, or just like actual songs, I thought, okay, that doesn't sound that great to me, honestly, because we've seen films like that, Guardians, Suicide Squad, etc., Marvel type films, where they kind of do that. Okay, if they go that direction, it's sounding bad to me. In my opinion, I thought it kind of sounded like almost cheap. It brought it down to sort of cheap level. But then after seeing this trailer, I think I'm suddenly back on the hype train because it did look very great. The visual style and language was very reminiscent of the first one. So I'm glad they didn't detach from that too much. And I think the flow and kind of like the surreal madness type thing they have going on in the trailer was good because clearly a lot of this stuff is definitely going to be going on in their mind and not necessarily in real life. So I think if they play on that angle more, just the insanity angle a little bit, I think that will be much more of like, it'll make the film much more interesting because all scenes where, they're like on that rooftop in Hotel Arkham. I definitely don't think that's real. I think that's definitely in their head. But then in like the steps of the crowd, and that's real. So it's like, I think there is a good mix where, at least as far as the trailer is showing, that they're doing it in an interesting way. So I think as long as they keep it with that angle, they keep it in that fashion, and they don't overload with too many like songs that kind of take you out of the movie, I think it'll work well for it. But it still remains to be seen how it will go. It does depend on the songs they choose, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the visual language. I think it seems, which is not crazy to think in hindsight. And you have the same director back. You got the same production crew. People are interested in kind of living up to what the first film was trying to do. But at the same time, if they just literally repeated the first movie again, I feel like you really wouldn't have gotten anything important out of this movie. And especially when we look at Joaquin Phoenix and kind of what his philosophy on filmmaking, he's really against sequels. He doesn't do sequels, he's not into sequels. Of course, I threw him a bag for this one in terms of money. He got an extraordinarily huge paycheck to come back, but I'm sure it's part of it, I think. But another part of it is to get him interested in, hey, this is something different, and it's gonna be like a throwback to like a different era of filmmaking, and where it is about that musical element. There is this sense of levity underneath this kind of dark underbelly, basically, of the film. So I'm actually somewhat surprised as well. I mean, I was always a little more positive than you guys, I think, on coming in. I was like, hey, let's give it a chance. I think there must be a reason why Joaquin signed up for a movie like this. But overall, I'm pretty good with it. I mean, Umar, you are the resident Joker fan, I think. I mean, I don't know what your Joker rankings are anymore, but what did you think this movie? Do you think it's gonna live up to the first one?
I don't think it's gonna live up to the first one, but I think it doesn't have to because it's gonna be so different. I think because they're making it in such a different way. I guess like the visual style in the first one, I really like that one scene where like she draws a smile on the mirror or whatever, and then he becomes a smile, whatever. That was really cool. I think that those things like that will make it so that it's definitely very visually like the first one, and I think that's something you should obviously keep, and they're doing that. But I think the fact that it's musical, the fact that I think they'll play more with things happening in their imagination. I think because of those things, the movie stands to just be on its own a really, really good thing. And I think it's gonna be so different that it's gonna be very hard to compare to the first one because they're just gonna feel so different. And I think because of that, they're gonna do well. I think that's why no one's gonna really. I don't think so. The question of like whether it's gonna live up to the first one, I feel like won't actually matter. Like it won't actually connect to this movie. Like I don't think that's a question people are gonna ask after watching it. I know it makes sense to ask it before, but I think watching it, I don't think people will care. I think they'll see it as its own thing.
Yeah, and when I asked the question, okay, what do you think is it going to match up? I was thinking in two ways. Number one, is it going to make $1 billion? Because that first movie making $1 billion is almost like an anomaly, like $1 billion hit. I mean, these days, no movie it's $1 billion, but back then, like it was happening. 2019, I mean, that was the year of Endgame came out. And there was $1 billion hits the whole year in 2019, and Joker was one of them. But I do somewhat doubt this movie's going to hit $1 billion, though. In terms of trailer views, Joker 2 had almost like 200 million views in the first like 3 days. I mean, people are definitely interested in seeing this movie. And the second thing is, will this movie win an Oscar? And for that, I think there's a definite no. I don't think, number one, they rarely give sequels Oscars in this industry, but I don't think this movie is geared for another Oscar unless Lady Gaga is trying to specifically get one. But I don't know where there is an opportunity there. So that's kind of one way I was thinking. But for the most part, there's been a very positive outlook at this trailer. But Samir, I want to go to you next. I mean, are you in the same boat as everyone else, or do you have an alternate opinion?
I mean, I think the trailer looks really good. I still think that the film is kind of unnecessary as like a sequel. Like, there's no reason for it to exist. But I think it's getting an overly positive like review for the trailer, just because the musical thing kind of threw a lot of people off, even though the character in the first one was very performative and like dancing around and having that like celebrity like status kind of. So it was always very fitting. So I think it looks really good, but people are overhyping it on Twitter. I mean, like Umar said, the smile shot with like she draws the lipstick on the window. It's like somebody retweeted that with the Letterboxd review. That's like, it would seem deep. Like the pond seems deep if you've like never swum the ocean or something. It's like somebody put it side by side with the shot from The Office where they put a mustache on Dwight and he's just like standing there with the mustache. It's like it's not like mind blowing, like crazy revolutionary. I still think it's really good, but people are going crazy over it. And Lady Gaga looks really good in the movie. I think compared to what Margot Robbie did with the character, she's like taking it in a very serious route, very unhinged. I think she'll probably steal the show. Even though Joaquin Phoenix won an Oscar for the first one, I think she'll really be a standout in this one.
Yeah, and some of the influences that Todd Phillips and everyone said during CinemaCon, they compared it to Francis Ford Coppola's musical One from the Heart from the 80s, and there's a couple of films from the 70s they want to draw influence from, like they're trying to, play on things, kind of like how the first movie was very much a play on like that Martin Scorsese 70s era, Taxi Driver, etc. They were trying to play on that. This movie, the same thing. It's a lot of homages to some films from the 50s and some from the 70s, but we're going to see how it actually translates. If it ends up being good or not, it remains to be seen. I'm not sure if it's going to be in contention for best movie of the year or it's like that. I kind of doubt it. At the same time, this might be the last, really good DC movie in a while. We don't know where the next era of DC is going, to be honest. So this might be kind of a place to, hey, let's just see cinema. This is not related to James Gunn in any way. It's not a DC Studios production. This is a old school Warner Brothers production with Mike DeLuca, Pam Abdi, these people like doing it. So we'll see. This kind of sits in its own little bubble. The DC itself is not really like feeding into it. It's more like WB is trying to push this as a next level award contender. Let's see if it actually does that. But yeah, from there, let's touch on a film that we did not get a chance to review last week. This is more quick round for me and Zion. We can jump on in. That's going to be talking about Godzilla x Kong that just came out, and where obviously this is one of those campier movies that you have these big CGI monsters fighting, and there's nothing deep necessarily going into it. But I wanted to quickly give my review, and I give the film 3 stars, and I think that it services exactly what a specific audience is looking for, and this is what I call the definition of a popcorn movie. This is a movie where you can turn your brain off, Saturday morning cartoon style. You just watch these monsters fight, and it's just funny, and it's not supposed to be serious. And I think when you go in with that kind of mentality, I quite found myself enjoying it, and that's funny considering we came off of last year, where I think me, Zion, and Samir, we all saw Godzilla -1, and that movie we all came out giving. I think all of us gave it more than 4 stars. Maybe Samir gave 3.5. I don't fully remember which gave it, but we all came out giving it pretty high ranks. It won the Oscar for best visual effects, so we saw Godzilla in a very serious way. This movie, Godzilla x Kong, is more like, hey, let's go for that campy late Showa era Godzilla, where he's just, a superhero almost, and he's like fighting these villains and trying to save the earth, and all that. So that's kind of what you get out of this movie. And I came in very skeptical. I kind of was not that interested going into it, but to be honest, I came out kind of interested, kind of impressed. And I'm like, you know what? For some reason, this cinematic universe, which started 1 year after Man of Steel, is still going stronger when the DCU is dead. So when I think back, I'm like, wait, this thing is still flourishing somehow, all these years later. It's still working since 2014, but the DCU started 1 year before, it just flamed out, So something is clearly working, even though we give it a lot of flack. Especially on our podcast, we've given it a ton of flack over the last few years. But I think right now, even though the movie's not perfect, I want to give it some flowers that, what, somehow it's working. So I'll give it to that. Zion, what did you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with all your points. I think the trailers did it was very much a disservice to the film, because even myself seeing the trailers, it kind of looks so bad and almost garbage, even in a way. And I thought, yeah, they kind of don't know what they're doing, especially off the high of what Godzilla -1 did with, Godzilla's an existential threat, and the point of view is from the humans and the human aspect, and their fight for survival against this thing. And obviously that has its place in the Godzilla lore and story. And whenever they do that, it's always amazing, because it's always just that feeling of survival. Now, this is on the complete opposite. And like you said, there's some reviews I saw of the movie where people were complaining that, it's not serious, or they expected more out of it. And I'm thinking that, why would you expect something more out of this? This is really just a big monster mashup movie. And I think it did a better job of what it was trying to do than what Godzilla vs. Kong did. I thought that movie was pretty much a letdown and kind of boring as well. But this movie, it was fun, and it was interesting enough where you didn't feel bored out of it. It just kind of kept you going. And I think some of that, the focus on Kong was really the reason, because though he's just like a big monkey guy, he still comes off as more of a sympathetic character, even within his own little subplot of the Scar King and the other 8 Titans or whatever that are there in the sub-Earth or whatever. That still kept it interesting, because it gave him some sort of plot. And I think people who are Kong fans definitely enjoy this film much more, because Godzilla definitely took a backseat. He was very much like the Superman in Zack Snyder's Justice League, where he's such an all-powerful being that once it came to the end, he kind of cleared it out so fast. So you kind of keep him occupied doing other things until the end of the final fight, where obviously then Godzilla's just unstoppable. So they kind of handled it that way, and I think that worked. I think it was more interesting that way, because I, in a way, like Kong better in this type of aspect than Godzilla, unless it's like an existential threat. So I think the focus on him really lended itself well to the film. and it was just fun. It was like some of it was dumb. It wasn't perfect. Yeah, I'd agree. I'd also give it like a 3 out of 5. But I think even the human element of it, with like the girl from Kong Skull Island and the other side characters, it was interesting enough where it wasn't completely boring, unlike the previous films where you kind of just want to leave the theater when any of the human scenes comes on. So I think that was all handled well, and it all played well into this just fun popcorn big monster movie, and then all at the campiness of Godzilla and Kong teaming up, they're smiling. It was dumb, but it worked. It actually worked, and I think that's what made the movie enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, one of the comments is saying that one of the MonsterVerse's strengths is that there's enough time that passes between films. There's not a film every year, and that works to MonsterVerse advantage. And I agree. There's only been 6 movies in this universe, and all of them are kind of average in my opinion. But because when they do come out, it's like this big event movie, and everyone has to watch it. It's always a box office draw outside of Godzilla versus Kong, because that came out during peak COVID and it came out straight to HBO Max. And I think that, in my opinion, I always say that was the worst movie of the universe. But then I think back, I'm like, maybe it was the worst movie of the universe because we watched it on a tiny screen. It's only meant for theaters, not meant for TV screens.
I thought we watched in theaters.
No. This is peak COVID. No, it came straight to HBO Max. There's no theater for this one. The theaters weren't even open. So yeah, it's interesting to see what that looks like. Samir, I mean, you didn't watch the movie, but I know you have you're very opinionated on the MonsterVerse. So even if you didn't see it, do you think, why is it working? Why are audiences still watching it? Why is it making so much money at the box office? I mean, it destroyed Dune 2 at the box office. That's all it is.
It's just like a mindless, just a big kaiju fight, it's a big CGI fest.
I'm there for it.
I mean, on the big screen, I guess that's what theaters are for, kind of. Just go and watch on the biggest screen possible, just for entertainment purposes. I guess that's why it works. I don't think that if Godzilla versus Kong came out like post-COVID in theaters, it would be any better. Just because so much of it was so bad, like the human elements, and I guess the CGI part, the giant fight didn't really live up to it either. I mean, it did for like 2 or 3 minutes, but that whole movie was just so bad. I think it's the worst one out of all of them.
I agree too. Yeah, I think it's the worst one as well. I'm with you there. But it's interesting. Let's see kind of, I mean, we know where it's going next. I mean, they said this movie they called Godzilla x Kong, where really Kong was the main character and Godzilla was like a side character. But the next movie is going to be the opposite. Godzilla's the main character and Kong will be the side character. I don't know who's caught up on the lore in the comments or on the chat, but I would like to see some interesting kaijus come next, like Destroya or Space Godzilla or something. Like, give me something interesting that it would make it that all these like, they're basically like the Avengers or something now. Like, they come together. They got to bring Kong.
Now they have Mothra. Now they have that other ancient dragon.
They got to
all
pull up
come together.
Exactly. They all got to put up. We already got Mecha Godzilla. We got a lot of the big ones out of the way. So now let's get to these like end game level. Of course, if you guys know like the lore, like Destroya was the one who killed Godzilla and kind of ended the second era of the Godzilla, Japanese Toho universe. But so I would love to see that again. Like let's kind of get to an end game of some kind. But I don't know. Oh, see, Samir, I see you shaking your head at that. You don't want to see an end game for these characters.
Like you're like explaining a Death of Superman type movie where Godzilla's dead and he's like, oh, they're setting up another movie where they're gonna come back or something, different color and everything.
Yeah, it's like BVS. The guy from BVS art.
Like
I mean, the amount of dialogue that Henry Cavill got in BVS is equivalent to how much Godzilla spoke in this movie. Like,
I mean, it'll be better than Superman.
1 to 2 lines. That's just but here we go. So we have some lore here. Biolante. That's not the one that's like the big gray thing. Like, I think I remember that one also. Yeah, I want to see where it goes. Either way, let's go to our final quick fire topic, then we're out of here. And this is a video game topic. Again, me and Zan can handle it quickly. I want to touch on it because we never got a chance the last like 2-3 months while we were working on it. And that's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Quick round fire, nothing crazy because it's like obviously it's a cinema channel, not for video games. But Zion, do you think this is the game of the year, or do you think that there's what score did you give it? Quick, like 1 minute, like review.
I thought it was an amazing game. It wasn't perfect, but it kind of did give everything you wanted. Like these scenes, I think I'm giant Zach fan. He's probably second favorite character in any fiction, and of like video games. So I think I obviously love seeing him back, seeing the way the story. I wish they could have given a little bit more, but every time the game shifted to his story and what he was doing, it got you completely hooked and sinking to it. And I thought that was just amazing. And then the whole ending, I think the whole final stretch of the worlds crossing over and them meeting each other for 1 second and the fighting, I thought it was just 100 out of 10. It's like, that's the stuff I like eat up and I kind of live for. And that's what I was waiting for in the game. But I think overall, it was kind of set up-ish in a way where it's like kind of just let's bring all the pieces together again and lead to whatever's coming in the third game, which the name is yet to be announced by some other R game. So all the pieces were there. I think everything they gave was good. In terms of ending, I personally think I like that final scene transition to the credits of Remake much better. I think that one left us off with like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? Crazy stuff is happening. This one was more balanced in that sense that, okay, there is stuff to come and there are open questions to be answered, but it left a sense of somewhat of closure as well. It's very similar to Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2, where in Kingdom Hearts 1, you see Sora and Kairi split apart, and that kind of leads to the credits. And in Kingdom Hearts and Remake, you see Zack alive and then passing by Aerith and Cloud in the other universe, other timeline or whatever. So then that leaves you wanting more. And then same thing with 2. It kind of leaves it a more general happy ending, but then you know something's yet to come with Sora getting like the bottle from King Mickey, and then obviously whatever happens at the end of Rebirth with Aerith and all that stuff. So I think there's a lot of questions to be answered. A lot of the end pieces were very interesting, just how they handled the key scenes of in the original, how Sephiroth came down, Aerith at the temple. I think it was very interesting. All of that part was 10 out of 10, but I think overall I'd give the game like 4.5 out of 5 or 4.7. I'm doing like the Uber thing, 4.75, you know. It was near perfect in my opinion, but I wish there was just a little bit more to grasp onto that would just lead us into the hype for the third game. But they kind of left it much more subtle and more relaxed. And okay, the pieces are there. Now let's see how it all concludes at the end.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you there. I think 4.5 out of 5 for me. I think maybe overlines on mini games. I feel like there's too much mini games every 5 seconds where I started to feel like, wait a minute, yeah, this is that 80-hour, 100-hour game, but how much of it is bloated by mini games and how much of it is actually the meat and potatoes of the story, which makes sense from an actual, when you compare to the original Final Fantasy VII, like not that much happens during this middle part of the game. So there's a lot of it is like leading up to the big Aerith moment and not a lot of like stuff in the middle. But I think the stuff we did get, absolutely grand level gameplay, really strong storylines. I think most of the voice acting was good. Score was great. Storyline was overall very strong. So I'm very happy with it. I'm excited for the next game as well. Definitely for me in contention for game of the year, but we'll see how it looks like. But definitely I'm very happy with it. And catch on our side channel if you're interested in video games. We have our spin-off channel FRQ Gaming, and you're going to see some of our highlights of our playthrough to Final Fantasy, a mix of both me and Zion, our gameplay. So just check that out as well. I'll have the comment of the link for the second channel in the description as well. And yeah, I agree here. Definitely a major contender for game of the year. Let's hope we don't have to wait another 4 years. Yeah, I think 3 years will be great. 2027 is the 30th anniversary of Final Fantasy VII, so I think that's the perfect time to release the final one. But let's see how it goes. Either way, what did you guys think about Joker 2, the trailer? Do you think it's going to live up to the first one? Why do you think the MonsterVerse is so successful? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below as well. And what did you think about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? If you are a gamer out there, let us know in the comments and join the debate. From myself, from Zayan, from Samir, and from Umar, we're the Farooqi Bros, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.